Hi, I'm Angified. I started Angified Presents.
We share the love of music.
It has been medicine and therapy. Nothing else worked.
It has saved many of us. With mental health, we need to open our eyes.
Hurt people hurt people.
We ask that you listen, comprehend, and relate with your ears.
Form that heart of unity and one.
We share on this stage.
Statistics, feelings.
And ourselves.
We stand with the belief to be you, to be heard, and to be original.
We all may be different, with opinions and beliefs.
At the end of the day, we are all brothers and sisters.
We are family.
We ask that you join us in a magical journey with artists from around the world. Open your minds. Let in the love.
And listen with your hearts.
We all want a better tomorrow. Be one.
Communicate and look out for one another. And then, and only then, will you find the world.
We will find peace in all the world.
You'll find the world. And you will find in this shining world. He was among us in every boy and girl. Many have been broken, red hearts turn black. Love will melt the ice and turn it back, and you will find the world. You will find the world. You will find the world. And when you find a place called home, where everyone is free to roam, a whole new world, a better place for our children's futures at stake. And you'll find, with music in your soul, laughter in your hearts, together we can grow a better place, with love in our soul. And you will find, together we can save it all. And you will find, and you will find a place called home, where everyone is free
minds insist that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much RAM. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking IT. We're talking IT. Every Thursday night on Angified.
We're talking shh quietly.
Very quietly. Sometimes
About
a little louder,
IT.
but you know. Sometimes a little louder. Depends.
Oh, and
Depends on the day.
we've got some things to talk about this week. We're gonna jump straight in here because some of this news I wanted to talk about last week, but you know, we did guitar last week and I kind of put this to the side, but there's some big news going on.
Gotta go check it out in the cave.
IT cave we go. And this is the since the beginning of the year, we've had some pretty big news from like Studio One being taken over by Fender. Reason now might be making a comeback, and this one, Bolo, to his credit, he kind of got the word out there, and Native Instruments, huge company in the music world, is going through preliminary insolvency. And for those who have invested in their gear, and some of them 25 years of investment into them, it's a scary time if you're a Native Instrument fanatic like Bolo.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is when you get, when you find yourself in a particular ecosystem, whether it's personas, whether it's, wherever you are, you have, your model that you work with. And sometimes it gets to the point where, that kind of thing happens. So it's good to be flexible on which hardware platform you use, but I totally get being in one particular, corner, let's say.
Yeah, well, I think the thing that's of concern there is depending on the equipment that you got from them. There's samples, the sample library, that's not going to go away anytime soon. There's other samplers that can load those. But the equipment was tied very close to the sample libraries and everything else. And what goes on with the support for the equipment in the future? I've got concerns, and I don't even have a Native Instrument piece of equipment. I just know a lot of people who do.
Yeah. And a lot of times when it comes to a situation like that, like if there is hardware that is out there that gets abandoned by whatever company, a lot of times the user community, if there's enough support behind it, if there's enough, avid support behind it, they'll come up with, their forums themselves, they'll come up with the answers themselves, I should say, in the forums.
Yeah. And if ever there's a community where you would get that, this would be one of them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I'm kind of hoping that, like, another big company, because that would make sense, is that another big company sees the value of this and continues the tradition and the technology. It means there's some good opportunity maybe to get some of that equipment for cheaper, as long as it's going to work in the future.
Sure. And that's the trade-off, right? That's what you got to make sure of.
Yeah, and he's gonna provide us with some of the information there on this. To me, is the biggest news so far this year, as a big deal in the music world.
Yeah, for sure.
And another one that I was really sad to see, because you know me with Flash. Uh, I worked at Macromedia. I was on the Flash support team, director team. Um, I mean, Flash itself, the technology has been dead for a long time, ever since iPhones decided they weren't going to use the technology. But the animation side of it, a lot of the cartoons you see, animators never stopped using it because it's so fast and easy to animate with. And it turned into Adobe Animate, and it lived on for another decade. But Adobe put the writing on the wall that they're going to be discontinuing this. And for a lot of animators out there, this is a big deal too.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, having your tools, the tools that you've used, day in, day out for so long, and somebody, pulls the rug like that, you do have to, find an equivalent. And that's the question: is, are there good tools for that out there that are
In
available?
in the animation world, there are, but unfortunately, it's a big learning curve. It's just like switching DAWs sometimes. If the interface is drastically different, the tools are different places.
Yeah.
It-
I mean,
People spent a decade learning how to animate this way.
yeah. I mean, and it goes to any, it doesn't have to be animation tools. It could be any particular type of software. The same thing applies. It could be word processing software way back, like this one versus that one, different hotkeys, different shortcuts, whatever. So it's everything has, when you have, the one that you're working with and then you're trying something different, everything's all in different places. It's a little bit of a, a learn, like I said, it's an adjustment, a learning curve, but sometimes it's, it's good to try other ones, even if you are set with the one that you're using, just so that you're ready for something like this if it happens.
That's why it doesn't hurt to have a backup technology in some cases. When it comes to Adobe, certain tools, they're like your de factos. For me, Photoshop, there is no other image editor. It is my tool. But something like this, it's been a long time coming. And because the tool was so powerful, it managed to survive all this time. But I think Adobe's realizing that they may not be the kings of the animation world anymore. That's why they're moving away from it.
I mean, they could even see what AI is doing right now, because, any of us could just go, type in a sentence and get a small, script that used to take literally weeks of a team to do.
Yeah, and that could be part of the reason why they're backing away from this. They're seeing AI do something that seems so much easier, but at the same time, just like I don't want the AI to write my song, I don't want it to necessarily animate my animation. I want control of those objects.
At the same time, I could see someone being concerned that, about putting all their eggs in that basket of, hey, we're going to make the software that, could be at least partially replaced by AI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which could be anything. I mean, literally anything, almost anything could be replaced by AI that isn't, actual, coming up with new ideas.
Yeah. Then we're going to shift a little to hardware side. Last week we looked at that mic that was designed for miking a cabinet nice and easy. Well, now I'm looking at a cabinet and it's the FRFR, which I thought was like, when I saw it, I was like, oh, for real cabinet. But it stands for full range flat response cabinets. And these are cabinets that are designed to take advantage of IR models, because different IRs are meant to sound like different cabinets. And this is a cabinet that's designed to adjust to the IR that you're using.
Nice.
In
a lot of cases,
I think that's going to be a big deal in the future. Those guitarists who do want to be able to take a cabinet sound on stage and can't load the VSTs into a computer and all of that. A combination of a cabinet like this with like the mic we looked at last week and some good IRs, and you got a Marshall stack.
Yeah. And again, like a lot of people, it's the fact that they can't get the tone they want unless it's at a certain volume, because the amp won't do it unless it's at a certain volume. So like with an actual amp, you have to be certain volume, and you might have to hide from the amp in order to, not crush everybody on stage in order to get the tone you want. But using the IRs takes you around that problem, and then gives you the full, the full control of the actual volume. It's like having better control over the master and the gain on an amp, and being able to decide how much volume do I want and how much extra signal do I want. There's a difference there. So
Yeah, well, I think if you're mixing your technologies here between something like these modelers and these cabinets, and maybe that's that microphone from last week, you got a good situation here for the future.
I did see an additional option, which was basically a pedal, like a regular guitar chain pedal, that you'd stick in the guitar chain, that has basically just a straight up, kill volume knob, where it's you can take however much signal you want to send at it to get the tone that you want before getting to the amp, and then be able to dial it back to whatever you want to actually have come out in the room,
but
without
does it
actually
go,
losing the tone.
But does it go to 11?
It takes it from 11 down to 4, 3.5, or up to 9. You can have a lot of control over it, and that way you're bringing a lot of your control close by, and not having it affect your tone or your sound so much as just affecting your presence or your volume.
All right. Well, if it goes to 11, I might use it.
Yeah, for sure.
And on the flip side, if you want to get a good acoustic sound, something that we talk about in the back all the time, like how to get a good acoustic capture. And I really like this video because it covers a lot of different considerations, not just the mic. Sometimes it's about the room, the size, the mic as well, but all of those considerations when you're trying to get like professional acoustic guitar recordings. Get Pro Recordings has a great video here on the things to consider.
Nice. And that's one where even just trying to mic people on stage, if they're not familiar with how to play with microphones, and they're used to just I play in the room and that's it, but you're now on a stage trying to project to a large audience, it's important to be able to, like a mic like I have here in front of me, I would not be able to play in the position I'm in now because the mic is it looks low from where I'm sitting, but it's actually too high for me to play into. I would have to have it pointed right at the sound hole, essentially, is what we're going to find out. Is positioning is important, the direction it's aiming is important, all these things are important. Plus, being able to play with a mic and a stand in your way, essentially, is something that not everyone is prepared for either. So
and it's a different challenge when you're having to mic an acoustic for the stage versus when you're trying to get that pristine sound in a studio.
Sure. And I've seen people even just use, a straight up guitar pedal that's just an acoustic modeler, where it's, old school. It almost looks like the original old Boss pedals, and it's just, an acoustic guitar. So you can play your electric guitar and it just sounds perfectly like an acoustic.
Yeah. You can fake it.
Yeah. Well, that helps you do the solos. Like, that's one thing that it can be difficult to do solos quickly on an acoustic guitar because it's different action if you're used to playing electric. But if you just get a pedal like that, you can play your electric solos the way you play them on an electric, but have it sound like an acoustic. So it makes you sound a lot faster.
And some guitarists just play better on electrics, especially
It's
on the
easier.
solo side. Soloing on an acoustic is a gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then to finish things off, we've been talking all this tech this year, and we're all the AI, and we have mentioned Anastasia several times for several different subjects, and how much we love what comes out of this channel for information. This one caught me a couple of months ago, and ternary computers. We're used to binary. It's on or off, and the computers we know have been binary forever, it seems. But there's actually a history behind the ternary computer, and they're still considering this alternate approach where you add a third bit. There's -1 and there's +1, and then there's 0. And this ain't your grandfather's binary here.
That's right. And that's the thing, is it does open up certain possibilities, but it also changes things. Things aren't as compact. The reason we did binary in the first place, there's a number of reasons, but
Yeah.
there are certain problems that Ternary could be better at, and that's what they'll talk about. But I
Yeah.
saw one just recently that caught my eye also on the size of data centers, where there's like a data center the size of Manhattan. That's ridiculous.
And that's she has another video where she gets into what's going on with data centers, and part of the argument here, why they're like considering going back to something like this, because it actually goes back to the early days of computers. Data storage, what they're dealing with for power consumption. This, in the long term, could drastically reduce some of the things right now that they don't know what to do at this point with storing the data and how much power we're demanding with AI. It's like AI is almost forcing us to look at this option as a consideration.
I've also seen people the talk of storing three-dimensionally in crystal lattice, or things like that going on. So there's different things, different ways of storing, where maybe binary is better, maybe ternary is better. There could be different methods that make different solutions more appropriate.
Yeah, and what's awesome with her channel is she's got all of that,
Oh, yeah,
and
absolutely.
then some.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it really studies tech in a very deep way.
Indeed.
But to get started, I want to know what's going on with this Native Instruments situation. When I heard it last week, I was like, okay, I'm going to wait to hear more on this. And I mean, Bolo, right from the beginning, at Bolo, the producer, he's the one who kind of came out the gate with the information, and all the other channels that I was looking at for, to cover this tonight, they all referenced like seeing his video first and then, reacting to it. Bolo was there right at the beginning, and he does actually have a couple of follow-up videos on, where do we go from here? What are we going to do if it doesn't go to another company, if the support cycle and the potential problems that you could have here manifest. And right now nobody knows, because it's not even insolvency yet.
Right.
It's just preliminary. So Native Instruments, they've purchased some big companies in the last couple of years. Isotope is the one that, when they mentioned that Isotope is under Native Instruments, I love their plugins.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that like some of that isn't affected too much from this.
Exactly. And as you say, like, depends on the community behind it as well, whether there's enough call for support or continued support and development for certain apps.
Yeah. Bolo does cover this information, and then if you check out his videos after, if you are a Native Instrument user, check out his additional videos, because they get into like, where do I go from here with my expensive equipment that I've invested into.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, preliminary insolvency is what they're calling it. And
Not fun.
yeah, I was gonna get like their keyboard version, last year. I want a backup keyboard, and it really seemed like the best choice. Colseth got one of the machines, and I really hope that this ends up for the better, not for the worse.
Right. And that's the plan, is like they're trying to turn it around, I'm assuming, is what they're going to do.
Well, recognizing this money problem early. I mean, not super early. I guess they've been having money issues for a little while now, but nobody knew it. It was a surprise to everybody. Everybody thought, damn, Native Instruments must be rich with all this stuff. And with all those acquisitions that they did, they might have spent more than they had.
Yeah, let's see.
All right, breaking news. Just got the news just now from one of my subscribers. And man, is this the end of Native Instruments as we know it? They just filed for early stage insolvency. And this is pretty much the stage right before bankruptcy. So let's talk about it. Man, I hate to hear this news. Really hurt my heart when I seen this because I thought it was fake. But I went ahead and read the article. Shout out to Peter Kern from CDM. I think this is like CDM Link or something like that. He wrote an article earlier today talking about Native Instruments. The German-based company is in preliminary insolvency. Now, of course, you know I had to look up insolvency to see what it actually meant. And let me go ahead and pull this up. I'm going to do this right here with you guys right here on my phone. I'm not really going to do too much editing like that. But basically it says insolvency is a financial state where individuals or business cannot meet their debt obligations either because liabilities exceed assets or they lack cash to pay due debts. Okay? So basically it's saying it's a precursor to bankruptcy, okay, which is a formal legal process, but one can be insolvent without being bankrupt, potentially resolving the situation through debt restructuring or negotiation. Okay, so we got that. Now, if we go back to the article, and basically what the article is saying is that, let me pull this up. Basically, it's saying that they are going to be selling off some assets of the company. Now, they say they laid off a few people a couple years back, but they are going to be selling off parts of the company, assets, whatever. They're going to be selling some of that stuff off to pay off some debts. And man, it really hurts my heart because I've really been riding for Native Instruments and I was hoping that things would get better with Native Instruments. I never knew that this was even going down. This is even news to me. That's why I'm bringing it to you guys right now. But it's sad to see this news because of all of the stuff that they've been putting out for these years. And now everything is now starting to come to a realization, on why things have been taking so long to get resolved. Why there hasn't been a new machine. Why it hasn't been a new machine plus. Why the keyboards are not working the way they need to work. In a sense, as somebody that was really riding hard for Native Instruments, in a sense, I feel a little bit cheated a little bit. I ain't gonna lie to you because this is something that I could have known about and I could have prepared for this or could have prepared you guys for this, but it's kind of crazy right now how this whole situation is going. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel with this situation because they're basically saying that they're trying to, find people to buy certain assets or maybe even sell the company so they can pay off their debts, which that could be a good thing depending on who wants to buy Native Instruments or buy their assets. And you already know where I'm going with this. Now, what would the chances be if in music, the same people who already have a Kai, that already have the Native Instruments plugins in these MPCs and everything, I wonder what would be the likelihood or the chance of maybe in music picking up Native Instruments. Now that would be crazy because now that would be two separate divisions in there where they have two standalone devices. And with what InMusic has already been doing with the new MPCs, this would be incredible. It almost kind of be like in-house fighting a little bit, but it's two separate companies. Would they buy the company and just roll it all in one into a Kai or something like that or InMusic, or would they keep it two separate companies? And me, if, I'm not saying they are, but if In Music buys it, I think they should still keep it as two separate companies, but cross platform certain things, you know, just like how they're doing right now with the Native Instrument sounds in the MPC. Okay. But that's just a theory. I'm not saying that it's going to happen or anything like that, but that would be very interesting. But I would still like to have a new machine. I still would like to have a Native Instruments division like that. Okay. I would still, well, I wouldn't keep the same people doing development because they've been taking so long to do that. So I don't know. It might need a whole new restructuring, just like how they're saying right here. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know what company will buy them. I don't know if there's another firm out here that would take on the debt or whatever, which there is a lot of firms out here that will take on that debt. They do have enough money to raise up cash to pay off the old debts and to keep things going. But I'm just hoping and praying that they do not go bankrupt. I'm hoping and praying that this will not be the end of Native Instruments. But as of right now, the way they're talking about this is kind of crazy. Now, the good thing about it is they're not shutting anything down. The site is not shut down. They haven't completely stopped all operations and all that stuff like that. They haven't did that. So that's still a good thing. That's still a good thing. So they're still doing things and they're still operating and they're still looking towards the future with Native Instruments. But as of right now, it looks like they're going to be sold at some point. Now, they have been under operation with another company since 2021. They was with the Francisco Partners. They had a major stake with them since 2021. And then the crazy part about it is it's not just Native Instruments. You got to think of Brainworks, Plugin Alliance, and everything else, like, you know, all the software like Tractor and all this other good stuff. It's a lot of stuff that's going on with this situation. And I'm just hoping and praying that they do not go belly up. I hope they don't go bankrupt. But we're going to see what's going to happen with this situation. I'm actually going to leave the article. I'm going to leave the link of the article in the video description. And so you guys can read the whole article. This is the article that I got. I'm going to leave that link in the video description. I already have it in my X account / Twitter account. I already have that link to the article in there. But man, what do you guys think about this situation with Native Instruments? Should In Music step in and pick it up? Or let me know some other companies that you think should probably step in and acquire Native Instruments and all the other stuff, because man, this is crazy. You got Ozone, you got a whole bunch of stuff, man, that's over there, and all of this stuff is going to be affected. So y'all let me know of some potential companies that, you know, like some umbrella companies that, you know, that are out here that could possibly save Native Instruments from going belly up. So I'm going to be looking into this. I'm going to try to get more details for you guys. Might do some lives and stuff like that on it. But how do you Native Instruments people feel about this? Are you guys angry about this? Or do you guys feel optimistic about this? Or do you feel a little slighted, a little cheated? Y'all let me know. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys may have learned something from this. And like I always say, peace out.
Oh, I understand why he would feel a little slighted.
Yeah, I can see that.
And it's not the company's fault per se there. Like, you know, we make our decisions in our gear, and it is a reality with this kind of equipment that, like, sometimes support drivers for a future Windows. Music companies are kind of infamous when it comes to cutting off support on things for different reasons. This is just one of the crappiest reasons to.
And that's the thing is, you know, it can happen for any number of reasons, like you said, but even if it happens for bad reasons, it's still something that's going to happen. So it's good to understand, you know, the path forward, whether it's, you know, going to different hardware, or whether it's figuring out the support path going forward and finding the community for that. There's always, you know, options.
Yeah, the tricky thing with this is it isn't just a hardware thing and it isn't just a software thing. It's both, and massive amounts of software and hardware that are affected.
And sometimes,
Well, if they're selling off their technology, which sounds like that's the road they're going to go down to avoid bankruptcy, they're going to sell what they can to pay off the bills, but then what's going to be left after that?
Right. And that's the question: is will there still be active development and all that kind of thing, or does everything stop? I mean, these questions would all need to be answered in the time going forward, but it depends on where the situation is. Another thing about it's not always the company's fault, as you said. Sometimes it is just purely timing. I mean, I don't know the whole situation here, but sometimes it is just the timing of the market. Like, you invest, as you mentioned, you know, by acquiring things. You know, they acquired something at just the wrong time, where they, you know, acquired this and then started leveraging it, but then something else came out, you know, to make it obsolete before it came out. Even, you know, that kind of thing does happen in industry, and it can be a problem.
I think a big reason why this was a surprise for guys like this, the acquisitions that they made were great ones. They were big deal at the time, and it didn't seem like this was a company that was, you know, needing to look at their books. It seemed like they were in acquiring mode. Like, we've got all this money, let's bring in more technology. And they really did get. Isotope is a big one to be affected by this.
Yeah, that's the thing. And we'll have to see how it all shakes out, for sure.
And when you think about it, when they acquired Isotope, it was at the peak of the Isotope technology. They were getting out there. I mean, I use several of their products because they're the best on the market.
Yeah, exactly. That's how fast the story can change.
Yeah. And on the hardware side, it reminded me of a couple of different times, like M Audio. I invested a lot into M Audio controllers back in the mid 2000s, and they went under within a year after my last purchase. I mean, I have like 3 different controllers. When they went under, again, drivers for future Windows non-existent. Thank God that they at least got to Windows 10, because that's where I need drivers.
Exactly. And again, you know, the actual communication between the device and the machine isn't that difficult, but it does need to be compatible. It does need to talk.
Yeah, the other one that it reminded me of, back in the 90s, you know, when Roland took over Boss. And, you know, in that situation, it actually turned out to be a benefit. Like, bigger company, very solid company, took over one, and
now it's a division instead. Yeah.
And they didn't like destroy the technology. They didn't change what Boss had already been. They simply continued the tradition there.
Exactly. And that's the important thing, is, you know, how it is shepherded from there, like how it is assisted through this process.
Yeah.
And whether it is the vultures who rip it apart, or whether it is, you know, kept together by the people who want to keep it together and pushed forward.
Yeah, hopefully whoever does acquire some of this technology isn't looking to get rid of their competitor. They're looking to utilize this kind of technology in what they do. Akai would be a good candidate here to take some of this technology, their samplers and their sample approach, incorporate that into their gear, and actually that would be a great situation.
Yeah, it could be, you know, a totally new piece of gear at the end.
If it can load those awesome samples that they have into the Akai gear, it's part of the reason why I wanted the Native Instrument gear.
Exactly. Get those libraries.
Yeah, so it's massive. I think that's one of their pieces of equipment is called Massive, and their sample library is one of the biggest out there.
Exactly. More hard drive space.
Yes, I'd like a place to put all of those.
Exactly. Dedicated spot.
that was at Boda Producer, freshy channel for us, not for me. I've been to his on my YouTube, but now he's part of our YouTube lineup. So awesome to have you, Bo. I'm going to be keeping up on this. I have multiple friends that this affects, and hearing the news, I felt like him, a little bit scared, like, oh no, this is a big deal, and gonna try to stay positive about this.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is trying to stay positive and just trying to see if they're going to be able to work through it, because it doesn't all have to be doom and gloom just because they're making this announcement. They're, like you said, they might have caught it early enough to be able to make some positive changes out of it.
Yeah,
we'll see.
And you know, he's a 13-time platinum producer. He can adjust little easier than some of us little guys.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, great information, Bo. I wish it was under different circumstances, but you covered it, and you covered it the best.
Yep. Excellent.
And that's his website, at bodaproducer.com. Check him out. And now the other one that saddens me, and this one hits me more than it probably would for most people, but this is software that I started my programming career with. I learned how to animate with. I watched it go from Macromedia to Adobe. I watched Apple kill the technology, and
now, how long did it take you to paint all the individual frames on the cartoons, like with the paints? Like a long time?
actually, the beauty with the Flash approach and with vector art is you're not really dealing with pixels. You're dealing with shapes, and that's why it works so good as an animation solution. You're not overtaxing the computer with frame by frame rendering. You're mathematically moving things around.
Change this to that a little bit.
Yeah, and go from here to here.
Yep, exactly.
And this is also a gaming channel, so on our gaming nights, we will be back for more, but at Games from Scratch. And considering what Flash used to be at the beginning, it was a gaming engine. If web games all used to be done in software like this, and a lot of modern cartoons use this software. You go watch on Adult Swim and some of the cartoon channels, a lot of those cartoons are actually using this software.
Exactly.
So it is kind of a big deal, and considering it's Adobe, one of the biggest software companies on the planet, and they're going through a lot of changes over there. I know that like Premiere and Photoshop are safe, but everything else right now, Adobe's like consolidating, refining, shaving off software that they don't feel there's a market for anymore, which ironically Apple is scooping up with that creative library we looked at.
Yeah.
So, you know, the big companies out there are moving and shaking.
Exactly. And like you said, I mean, depends on how much AI is going to take over on a lot of things or assist with a lot of things to make some of the tools that we used to use obsolete, or, you know, just there are better ways to do these things to at least get to a, you know, storyboarding stage, for example.
Yeah.
You can jump right to it with typing in a sentence and be, okay, now, boom, there we go. And, you know, use that as a jumping off point, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And Adobe has incorporated AI into their products. The Firefly engine has become very popular. But I guess in this particular product with the animation, they feel like it's better to step aside and let the market find another solution.
Yeah. We'll have to see.
Game from Scratch is going to give us this sad news. For me, it's sad news.
Yeah.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mike here at Game for Scratch, and we are at the end of an era. Flash is finally dead. Now, you may be thinking Apple killed off Flash years ago, but the thing is, Flash lived on in the form of Adobe Animate. And now, well, Adobe Animate, everyone's favorite company, Adobe, they've decided to kill one more tool. So this is the last vestiges of Flash. It started life as Future Splash, I think it was, and then it was picked up by Macromedia, turned into Macromedia Flash, and then back in like 2015, Adobe bought it and turned it into Adobe Flash, and then eventually Adobe Animate once again. The Flash runtime got killed off. And this is a very instrumental program still to this day, as I will illustrate in just a second. But first, let's get to today's announcements. Announcing the end for Adobe Animate. Thanks for bringing your ideas to life with Animate. Starting on March the 1st, 2026, the app will no longer be available for purchase. Existing Animate customers may continue to use the app. Support will continue for enterprise customers for 3 years through March 1st, 2029. For all other customers, support will continue for 1 year through March 1st, 2027. In the future, check out Adobe After Effects for complex keyframe animations and Adobe Express for one-click animation effects that you can easily apply to photos, videos, text, shapes, and other design elements. So that is the announcement. And you'd be wondering, okay, who the hell is still using Animate at this point in time? Like, Flash was all about Flash animations, right? Well, no. It was also used to make a ton, and I do mean an absolute ton of feature films. So you can see here, we've got, going back, this is from, again, a Wikipedia article, not my source. So if there's something wrong here, blame Wikipedia, not me. But you can see here, titles that were made using Flash, there are an absolute ton of them, going back to the, again, the early aughts and on, right up till this day, including Cheech and Chong's animated movie. On top of that, you know, a number of Disney, Netflix here, we've got Mattel in here as well, Hasbro Studios, Studio Canal, and again, Netflix, Nickelodeon used it quite heavily. Warner Brothers, like Teen Titans Go versus Teen Titans, you can see here. Phineas and Ferb, things you've definitely heard of, were being created using this, including Tupi and Binu, the movie. Again, as a Canadian, that one really hits hard. On top of that, we've got a number of other films here. I don't know why they're broken into a different category, but you may have heard of South Park. As an example, we go down here, On and On. It was used to a certain degree for the ending credits, for example, in WALL-E. So this is used for a very specific subset. But as you can see here, again, right up until 2025, there are titles, big titles that you have definitely heard of that are still making use of Animate. So these seem to be, I guess, full films that were made using it. The other ones are aspects of a film that were made using it. So this has a huge following in the animation world, and now it is gone. Don't worry, though, I will be showing you some alternatives to it, but first let's go through the Adobe FAQ on the discontinuation. So again, same thing we just talked about, closing it down on March 1st. You'll no longer be able to purchase it. Why? Why are they doing this? Animate has been a product that existed for over 25 years and has served its purpose well for creating, nurturing, and developing the animation ecosystem. As technologies evolve, new platforms and paradigms emerge and better serve the needs of users. Acknowledging this change, we are planning to discontinue supporting Animate. I saw a lot of articles on this basically saying that it was actually Adobe's push into AI that was the purpose or the animus behind this decision. I don't know if that's the case, but that seems to be the narrative that they're going with, and that would fit Adobe's MO for sure. When will it take effect? We already have those details. What other products do you recommend? Interestingly enough, they recommend a number of Adobe products, which I'm going to recommend a lot of non-Adobe products, so don't worry about that. But they suggest you transition over to Adobe After Effects, do keyframe animations using the Puppet tool, Adobe Express for one-click animation, and Adobe Express is definitely not a replacement. I haven't used Adobe After Effects in a long time, so it may have evolved its tool sets to include most of what was in Animate. I haven't actually used it in a while, so I don't know for sure. I got some more details. You'll still be able to download it until March the 29 for enterprise customers. All other customers will be able to download it until March 1st, 27. So yeah, that's it. They're end-of-lifing Adobe Animate. So alternatives. One of the ones I recently covered on the channel is Friction Graphics. This is free and open source. This was spawned by Envy, E-N-V-E, which is a very similar project that was kind of left to rot. This one has one of the highest potentials in my opinion. It is a very cool application, and I recommend you go ahead and check that one out if you haven't already. Another one out there is OpenTunes. This was spun off, I believe, from the Toon software developed by Studio Ghibli, which apparently I say wrong every single time. But this is an open source effort for the animation software they use for their productions. We've got Toon Boom. This is very popular in the commercial space, an all-in-one animation solution there. They actually have a number of different products, so it's not a singular product, but I think it would be mostly Harmony that you would be interested in. Then we got Moho, previously known as Anime Studio. Go ahead and check that one out. Again, this one was for a very specific art style originally, and now it's morphed into a more general tool there. But you can see here a graph editor support for SVG and PSDs and so on. Then we got a new one. This isn't available yet, but one to keep on your radar is Animator Me. This is for animators by animators. The creator of this actually was the one that put me onto the news that Animate was toast. So you can go ahead and check that one out. Which hopefully, I will cover this once more details are available, once there is a public release. But the public release is coming later in 2026. So you can see active development and the early release is planned for 2026. So do keep an eye on that one there. Then we've got Rive. This is a pair of products, basically. So you've got the editor as well as the runtime. You also now have a renderer that you can actually embed in your own game apps. So you can use Rive as your game UI runtime as well. But you can see here, this is probably one of the most polished options out there. And if you're willing to spend money, it's probably another one I would highly recommend you go ahead and check out as a direct replacement. Of course, you got Blender as well. A lot of people don't think of Blender in this regard. And for vectors, maybe a little bit less so. I'm not actually sure what Grease Pencil is using there. But when it comes down to the 2D side of things, there is a ton of functionality in here for 2D artists. You're ultimately still using a 3D tool, but that actually just gives you more power. You could ignore all of that and just use the Grease Pencil side of Blender for its animation. Of course, you've got all the rendering, the compositing, and all that else in there as well. So it is a surprisingly capable 2D animation platform. And then we have Wick Editor. This completely runs in your browser. It's free, open source for creating game animations, everything in between. And again, you can run it directly in your browser, or you could go ahead and download it as well. Their website is a little unappealing, but it's more on the simple side. But if you just need to make web animations, it could be a one to start with. Then we've got Synfig Studio. This is an open source 2D animation software as well. Again, using vector styles. You could also count something like Krita in this, but that is more of a raster package. But it does have onion skinning, timelines, rendering for motion graphics, that kind of stuff. So it would qualify as well. But Synfig is more about the vector side of things in there, although you can mix in raster as well. Another one is Tahoma 2D. Again, powerful, free, and open source software for 2D and stop motion animations. So you can get an idea of what it's there. They're doing their comparison against OpenToons. Again, another nice option for being free and open source. Then somehow I have Moho again. We'll just pretend that isn't there. And that's it. So we're back at the end. So Adobe have killed off the last vestiges of Flash. Adobe Animate is going away. And I am sure people love Adobe. Everything that Adobe does just makes people super happy. So I'm sure this one has made you all delighted. But let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of this move? Do you still use Adobe Animate in any capacity? And what are you going to switch to? Let me know. Comments down below. I'll talk to you all later. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Oh, he gave some good suggestions there for alternates.
Exactly. And we used a couple of them.
Both on the free side, both on the free side, and in some cases, if you're doing this in any series capacity, it's worth paying a little bit. Some of the paid solutions, especially if it does incorporate 3D rigging along with 2D, you get the best of both worlds there.
Exactly. And if you're not dealing with the 3D stuff, you can just ignore that part of the tool set.
Yeah, it's not like the 3D stuff really gets in the way of 2D animation.
Exactly.
If anything, it should make the 2D animator think more creatively. Some of those movies that he mentioned that had used Flash and Animate, that's the difference between South Park flat and South Park three-dimensional looking.
Yeah. And it's a big difference.
Yeah, Simpsons did it too. They had an episode about it.
Might as well.
Yeah, and some of those alternatives that he mentioned there, I checked out some of them in their earlier names. One of them, he said Animation Studio. That one goes back a while, and I did play around with that in the mid 2010s, because Flash was not getting the kind of appeal on the web that it used to when Jobs decided that, like, iOS, no Flash.
Yeah. Sometimes they bring the hammer down like that.
Yeah. But it's more the animation techniques that will survive. Animators have changed the way they do things with modern animation software, and in a way, it's probably a good thing that some of these animators who were still using Adobe Animate, which I'm going to be honest, I stopped using it when it became Adobe Animate because there were better solutions. These are animators having to go look at alternate approaches may find that they have more options and better tools now.
Exactly. And as we said, things are opening up a lot with AI also, where, you may be able to use combinations of tools plus some AI things.
Yeah.
See how things go.
The one thing that's kind of a kick in the balls when Adobe says, well, just go use After Effects.
Yeah.
If you're an animator, especially like 2D animation, the reason why they would use something like this, they don't use After Effects because that's overkill and way more complicated and CPU heavy, and you're dealing with vector graphics here. You don't want to go into something like After Effects where, yes, it can animate, but it'll eat your computer up doing it.
It's like, yes, it can, but would you want to?
Yeah, and for them to say, "Oh, well, Adobe Express, the one-click button animation." No, that's not the kind of animation control that, like, I would be looking for. I don't want
Exactly.
one-click solutions. One-click solutions don't let me customize.
And that's what we need is customization.
Yeah. I don't know who's in charge over there at Adobe, but I'd really like to talk to them one day.
Exactly.
So, at Game from Scratch, channel devoted to game development and web games especially is an awesome topic. I will visit for that kind of information.
Nice.
Yeah,
And for the young people in the audience, what is that blue thing in the icon there, where it says GFS, Games from Scratch?
Oh, you talking the floppy disk?
They probably don't even know what that is.
I remember those.
Yeah. Please insert disk 32 of 47 or whatever for
Are you
Windows
kidding?
install.
My Commodore library backup took 300 floppies. And you know me, I can't just have one backup. So 300 times and then 300 more.
And if one disk goes bad, is that whole collection gone?
That's why I would do it twice, because the chances of two of the same disc being bad is
It's still pretty high after a long enough time.
I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying it happened less likely.
But yes, having the whole backup where the whole thing or nothing at all, that's rough.
Yeah. So now we're gonna shift to a little bit of gear whores, and to complement last week's cab microphone, which I thought was a cool idea for a microphone. I like this idea too of a cabinet that's designed for flexibility. Like IRs are definitely a real thing nowadays. There's some great ones out there that simulate different cabinets, different mic placements on the cabinets, and you don't have to lug that stack on the stage to sound like you brought it on the stage. Um, these kinds of cabinets were made for the flexibility of these IR models.
They can deal with too much signal.
Yeah, and this is a freshie channel at Barefaced Audio. You see a lot of coverage here on. We should have brought him in for last week's guitar night.
There you go.
All of this is the kind of stuff we talk about on guitar nights.
Nice.
But For this one, the FRFR cab, which what did I say?
Full range frequency response.
Full range flat response.
Flat response.
And their goal was to not just cover that, but to give it true sonic accuracy. And
try to get the full signal through, the full tone that you're looking for.
That's a worthy goal for a cabinet. Especially if you're plugging in things like this, where you're taking virtual tones and virtual effects, and you want your cabinet to sound like the kind of cabinet that you normally had to pay a ton of money for.
And that's the thing, is the idea here is, again, with it's basically making it into a transformer where it can change into any of the cabinets that you want with the IRs. If you have the right IR, you can send it in there and it should capture and give you what you're looking for, because it knows how to sound like a Marshall stack. It knows how to sound like the crate. It knows how to do what it needs to do, whatever.
Yes, I am Optimus Prime.
Autobots roll out.
That sounds perfect. So let's see if this is for real, even though the FR doesn't stand for that. But
that's right.
If it is for real, this is a cabinet, if I was a guitarist, I might want.
Do you have a modeler? Do you want to sound great? Proper sound, not just in your ears, not from little monitors. Real big guitar sound. We have the answer. It is the Reality Activier. This is an active FRFR cab. It happens to have a 12-inch speaker, but that doesn't really matter because it's FRFR. So it's just trying to sound like it doesn't have a sound. So you can then apply whatever IR you want to get the feel and vibe of the speakers you like in the room. And you can have a mono one or you can have a stereo one. Now the stereo one is a mono one until you plug another cab in. And ideally, if you want a really great stereo sound, you plug in the matching passive Reality. If you already have an amp that you want to use for your FRFR solution, so when I say an amp for that, I mean like one of those power amp pedals or one of those rack power amps, so there are some nice valve ones of those that people use with FRFR, then instead of the Activier version, you can go for the passive one. We have a passive one over here. They look the same from the front. They also look the same as our Reformer guitar cab, which has a conventional 12-inch speaker, but they behave completely differently because there is a coax 12 with a tweeter in the middle of it at the front. That has one crossover, dividing the sound between the 12 and the tweeter. Because of our AVD design, which takes the mids and highs and lows from the back of the speaker and sends them out round the room, so you get great dispersion, great room filling sound and a really authentic feel. We also have another tweeter that takes over where the highs stop coming out of the AVD. The level of that is adjustable via some switches on the active version or a rotary L pad on the passive version. We do other Activier models. They are guitar cabs with normal guitar speakers, still AVD cabs, and then they have a power amp in them. I would say they are for people who are using pedal board based rigs and modeler rigs that are analog. So they either don't have IRs, don't have cab sims, or they have a very limited choice of cab sims, and they're, unless you get lucky, they're not going to sound as great as a real speaker. So the Reality is for your digital modelers and your digital IRs, where you get to choose from lots of different choices of speakers and amps and room locations when you're fiddling around dialing in your sound. And you may then want to switch through a gig or between different bands, different genres you're playing, that sort of thing. So it is a one-stop solution, mono or stereo, one cab or two cabs for mono stereo. And we even have more options for going louder and stuff like that. But if you want to understand stuff that hasn't been covered in this video, just email us. We are a small company, it's a small team, we make everything by hand here in the UK, and you deal with us directly. So it's a very different approach to everyone else who's got retailers and distributors and manufacturers and people who do marketing and stuff. It's just us. There's just a small team. We turn up in the videos, we design stuff, we play instruments, guitar, bass, drums, whatever. We sing, we produce, we engineer, and we have jobs designing and building and selling and, well, fixing occasionally. It doesn't happen very often because thankfully we make stuff that works and lasts for a very, very long time. And we sell directly to customers all over the world. We sell more overseas than we do in the UK. So it's going out across Europe, North America, and beyond, Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan, China, Japan, India. But it's a long list, but all direct from our little place in Brighton. If you are new to us, There are various reviews online of the Angified. There's more and more feedback coming in about the reality and what it can do. So, yeah, check us out. We'll have links in the description to the reviews and documents on how to plug these in and connect things up. But as I always say, if you're stuck, just email us. We have the answers. Is that enough?
Cool. All right. Cool. Sweet. Oh, there.
Oh, fade to black.
Nice. It does carry the tone. Nice.
Yeah, well, you hear like the subtle differences there as he's adjusting to the different IRs.
Indeed. And playing off of the same signal, that's always cool.
Yeah. Well, a lot of versatility for these modern guitarists who are going to be using modelers. That's a real thing nowadays. It's good to see equipment that's actually designed to complement it like that.
Absolutely.
And
Barefaced audio.
and I do like what we're seeing, these smaller companies. In some cases, I feel more comfortable going. You get better like passion to the product, commitment, customer service. A lot of times when you're going with these smaller companies like this, you get special treatment.
Exactly. I feel the same way.
Yeah, we saw a little of that with the Shark guitars,
Yeah, exactly. The other day.
And like these up and coming companies, they're committed to their cause and what they're innovating here.
I actually told I had a gig a couple days after we had our show on that with the shark guitars, and I mentioned it to the guitar player at the gig, and he checked it out, and he was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, it's definitely something. If you are a guitarist, that you should know about.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it didn't hurt, that it was from them, and it was, supported by somebody cool and all that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thought this was a perfect compliment to that, like, Mike last week. One of those, one of these.
Yeah.
Good modeler pedal board.
Little of this, little of that. Yeah.
And the cool thing with their channel is they're as active on the IR side. They provide you with some good open source IRs that are out there. They support the technology that they're designing this stuff for.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And they use it themselves.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
At Bear. We will be back for Guitar Night Part 4.
Yes.
And now, if you're one of those acoustic guitarists, and you're looking to capture that acoustic in all its glory, specifically in the studio, we mentioned like miking for live acoustic guitar, which is a different beast altogether. But when you want to get that good acoustic guitar sound into your recording, there's many ways to skin this cat, and your results and what you're trying to capture from the acoustic, there's some things to take into consideration.
Exactly.
And another freshie channel for us at get.pro.recordings. They're all about getting pro recordings, and that's awesome.
Exactly. There's a lot of ways to do it, a lot of things that go into the mix, but you can definitely pick up a lot of tips from things like this.
Yeah, well, all these videos, the topics are things we talk about in the back all the time.
Exactly.
Especially this one. When it comes to getting acoustic, I've got my own feelings on it. I want a line signal if the guitar has one.
Right.
Ovations are awesome at giving you both a line signal, and I want at least one mic, if not maybe two, to capture along with the line signal.
Sometimes even just for the room noise that you get, the string noise that you get from the picking against the strings, because that is an element of the song that's in the room when you're sitting there listening to someone play. So it's good to get it into the recording.
Yeah, well, that's why I want a mic, especially if it's a steel string, where like those nuances, they are part of the song in some cases.
Exactly.
So they're going to show us how to record acoustic guitar like a pro.
Right.
Mic setup, room treatment, and mixing. So it covers, setting it up, what you have to do with your room, and what you do post to get that pro sound.
Comprehensive.
Yes, that's how we roll.
Hi, friends. I'm Chris, and I want to help you get pro recordings. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get your acoustic guitar recordings to sound like that. We're going to look at different microphone placement options and do all the post-processing to get that finished, professional quality sound. So the first thing is, well, you need to have good room acoustics. You can cheap out on your audio interface and on your microphones and still get great sound quality, and I'm going to demonstrate that in this video. But you can't cheap out on your room acoustics. You see, a lot of people treat their home studio room acoustics in the same way as what's recommended for like a big professional studio, with a mix of absorption and diffusion. But you can't do this. Well, you can, I guess. I mean, I'm not your mother, but I would like you to accept me as your coach. And as your coach, here's my advice. Home studios are generally a lot smaller than the big professional studios. And a smaller space needs a different treatment strategy than a larger space. For this video, I'm actually recording in a booth that's less than 8 foot by 8 foot and 7.5 foot high ceiling. So it's actually a lot smaller than a typical bedroom. Now, this video isn't about acoustics, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I'll just quickly summarize. The smaller the space, the more treatment you need. If all of the walls are too close, then the reflections you get are all early reflections, and they're going to cause comb filtering. And that will ruin the natural tone of your recordings. In a larger room, where all the walls are farther away, well, the reflections have enough time before they come back that they're not going to cause comb filtering, but rather they're going to provide a pleasant reverb. So if your space is too small, the reflections are bad, so we need to eliminate them and compensate by adding reverb in post-production. I know that that's not perfectly ideal, but if you want perfectly ideal, then you're going to need to get a bigger space. For a smaller space, this is the best that can be done. I've done over 100 tests with different levels of absorption in different rooms, and also using different materials for the panels and different placement strategies. So I'm not just guessing here. I've done the research and experiments that focus on getting the best sound for a home studio. So if you're interested in learning more about acoustics, I have a full course on the topic. I go really deep, and I'll teach you everything you need to know to get your home studio sounding like a much bigger and more expensive professional studio. I'll put a link to that in the description down below. Now let's talk about recording technique. I like to record the guitar in stereo, and my preferred setup for recording in stereo is the mid-side technique, but we're going to compare a few different stereo recording methods here so that you can see why I like the mid-side the best. First is the XY miking technique. It uses two microphones placed close together with the capsules at 90 degrees to each other. Each microphone is hard panned to one side, which creates the stereo image. The next strategy is to use just one microphone placed about a foot in front of the guitar, aimed straight in at the guitar where the neck meets the body. Then in the DAW, we're going to use the Hass effect to make it stereo. So the Hass effect is where you put just a little bit of delay on one side, like between 10 to 40 milliseconds, but I usually use somewhere in the range of 15 to 20 milliseconds. So let's give that a listen, and I'll toggle the Hass effect on and off so that you can hear the difference it's making. And here's how the mid-side technique sounds. But I add my own little twist to it, so my method is a little different than what you would find if you were to Google mid-side technique, because the mid-side technique tends to have a lot heavier of bass on one side of the stereo field than the other. So I have this little technique that I do to balance out the bass so it sounds like it's in the middle. So this mid-side recording technique uses two microphones. One microphone is placed about a foot in front of the guitar, aimed straight in where the neck meets the body. It's the exact same mic positioning as when you use just one microphone. And this channel is our mid channel, and it captures the main body of the sound. So the second microphone has to be a figure-8 polar pattern, and it's placed as close as possible to the first microphone, but it's at 90 degrees so that it's capturing the sides and not directly capturing the instrument. And then also on the side channel here, I have these two gain plugins. Now, the purpose of these isn't for gain, although this one here, I do have 18 decibels of gain. That's a lot of gain, but that's because this ribbon mic has such a weak output. It barely captured any signal. It needed a lot of gain. Here's what it sounds like just by itself after the noise reduction. Okay, so that brings it up to a more usable level. But the real reason for this gain plugin is because this is a mono track and I need to turn it into a stereo track for the mid-side decoding. So this gain plugin is actually gain mono to stereo. So it outputs a stereo signal, and then I can instantiate a stereo gain plugin. And in the stereo gain plugin, I phase invert just one side of the stereo field. So when we blend that together with the mid microphone, that's what gives us the stereo image. Mono, stereo, mono, stereo. So that's how the mid-side decoding works. You've got your mid microphone and your side microphone. On the side microphone, you reverse the polarity of one side of the stereo field, and then blend that signal with the mid microphone, and it'll become a stereo signal. Retaining phase correlation between these two microphones is crucial, otherwise it won't sound good. So if you want to use an EQ on just one track and not the other, it has to be a linear phase EQ. What I like to do for any EQ or adjustments that I want to make to the guitar track is I just take these two microphones and I route them together onto a bus, and I put all my plugins such as EQ and compression on that bus. That way I don't have to worry about messing up the phase relationship between those two microphones. And then there's another little problem that's on pretty much any acoustic guitar recording. This always just annoys me a little bit, and that's the sound of the pick scratching against the strings. It's always just a little bit too loud for my preference. So I like to use a de-esser. I'll just put a de-esser on that guitar bus, and it's going to reduce that pick scratching noise just a little bit. And then I have this little trick to bring out more high frequencies. This just kind of opens up the sound and makes it sound like it's a little bit more upfront and intimate. It kind of puts you right there in the room with the artist. So I'm going to instantiate an aux send, and on the aux send, I'm going to put a saturation plugin with a low cut filter that's set really high. So only the really high frequencies of this saturation plugin are coming through. So this is going to add some high frequencies. It's kind of like using an EQ, but it's different than an EQ because this is actually synthesizing new sounds and adding them in. But we got to be careful with this because if we add too much, it's going to sound fake. But a little bit, just a touch, I think sounds really nice. Next is the final steps in the processing, and this is all pretty standard. We're going to add some EQ, some compression, and then I always like to put my reverb on an aux bus. And like every other song, the final plugin is your limiter. So let's give this finished recording a quick listen, and then I'm going to talk about the recording chain a little bit. So for microphones, on the mid channel, I used a Telefunken TF11 FET. This is a large diaphragm condenser, and it's one of my favorite microphones. It has a really low noise floor and a really nice natural sound. And for the side microphone, I used a Golden Age Projects R2 Mark II. The reason I chose this microphone is because it's literally just the cheapest figure 8 microphone that I could find, and I wanted to demonstrate that you don't need anything fancy for this figure 8 microphone. I actually wanted to use a Behringer C3 for this, which is dirt cheap, and I'm pretty sure it would have sounded just as good, but I'm located in Canada, and Behringer doesn't have any distribution in Canada, so I couldn't find anywhere in this whole country where I could buy one from. And for the mid-channel microphone, now I'm using a rather expensive microphone here, but there are some cheap microphones that work really well. Not all cheap microphones sound good, but I've got an ISK Vibrato. This thing is dirt cheap, and I think it sounds amazing for its price, but I'll let you decide. Let's do a comparison of how it sounds compared to the Telefunken TF11 FET. And for a recording chain, I'm recording into an SSL Pure Drive Quadro routed into a Metric Halo ULN8. If the finished song is just a solo acoustic guitar, then that's all the processing we need. But if you're going to add vocals or layer it into a stereo mix, you might want to widen the stereo field a little bit. There's a plugin that I like to use for this. It's called Wider by Polyverse. It's free. You can download it, use it. I really like this plugin. I use it quite a bit. And if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button because that's what it's there for. And if you do want to accept me as your coach, I've got a Facebook group. You're welcome to join it. Ask me any questions you want. It's called Get Pro Recordings. So if you want, you can check out the other videos on my channel and hit subscribe and also that little notification button if you want to stay up to date with all my new videos that I'm releasing.
Oh, I do like it. And I did hit subscribe at get.pro.recordings.
Always like those A/B examples.
Yeah, and can you believe how good that acoustic sounds? So clean and crisp. Some of the approaches and techniques, miking wise, I like that XY approach. Not one I've been lucky enough to be able to try, but if I have to record acoustic in the future, I want to take that approach.
Yeah, you have an acoustic in the house, don't you?
Yeah. I don't know how to use it.
Hey, you can start recording anyway. You don't have to know how to use it to start recording.
I need a quieter house though. His room was whisper quiet, and that guitar he picked up. It's funny the mic that he had to use the gain and put it up to 18. It was soft, but when you hear the signal, it was actually picking up. Um, it's sometimes that's why you gotta like have that boost or the other plugin, that widener. Use that shit all the time.
Oh yeah, the widener's good. There was one I had, the Wow thing. We talked about it once before, that where it was a piece of hardware that when you send something through it, it'll actually bring that low end up. So like if you have a song where the bass was cut off, or it was like somebody played a recording through a phone and you can't hear any bass, if you play it through this thing, you can actually dial up the bass, and it also had a widener on it as well, where you just literally hear the songs go, just get huge.
Yeah, these are side effects that nowadays certain mics like the Shure Sevens, the old ones that you needed the air to actually get the most out of the mic. You needed this extra $100 like
The lifter,
software
cloud lifter,
solution, yeah, just to actually get it to reach its full potential.
They started building it in now, actually. So the newer models have that built in with a button on the back. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I do like that he showed it both from expensive mic perspective and cost efficient mic. It's amazing.
it's more about the technique is the point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's amazing what you can get out of the. I would love that $800 mic. That's one that's been in my Santa wish list for a long time.
Sure.
But the $200 mic, that's in my range.
Yeah, and it's not bad. It's a lot better than the $34 mic for sure.
Yeah, when it's all about getting the right mic for the job first, and then the price of the right mic is dictated by the mic that you need.
And mics can last a long time. I mean, we've had, again, we use Shures mostly when we're on stage and all that, but whether it's the 57s that we're using for amps and all that kind of thing, or we also have cigar mics we use for other things. We have the drum mic setups, we have the vocal mics we use mostly, whether it's 57s, 47, 48s, whatever, 58s, 48s. But the point is that it's they take a beating and they just last forever, and it's the main thing is on and off stage, in and out of the cases, and just you have to treat the gear right, but if you treat it right, it'll last forever.
And if you are using them in a studio, there's no excuse for like breaking them. Take care of that shit and it will last forever. On the stage, I do understand, like, thank God Shure makes tough ass mics and PVs. They can handle like being dropped and getting banged up a little bit.
Now, not a lot of the people that we work with, but some of the people we work with would rather use their own mics, and that's totally fine. Like, bring your own mic. We're happy to set that up, hook up the wire. Our wire is your mic, no problem. Our stand, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the idea is that, we have them and we'll use ours all the time if you want, but if you prefer yours, use yours. That's the main thing.
Yeah, and hopefully yours sound as good as ours. Because if I was the sound guy and I wanted our sound, the band sound, to sound awesome, and they're like, no, we want to use our piece of shit mics, and I'm like, well, hey, I've got these.
Yeah, and that's the other thing though, is like, we mix so often, throughout the year with those mics specifically, because there are mics that you throw in somebody else's mic, you don't know what kind of response you're going to get. So you have to, you're throwing another unknown into the situation, where if we had your voice, which we don't know, coming through our mic, which we do know, through our system, which we do know, that gives us a lot more control than your voice that we don't know through your mic that we don't know into our system. It's just, it throws extra.
So many unknowns. I don't want to deal with that live.
Because that's like the unknown. Those are the known unknowns. And then there's the unknown unknowns that we still have to deal with after that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, live setup is, we're going to have to do another live night.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You have,
and one day we will actually start going through my archives and just even if it's just showing, screenshots from, some of the gigs that we've done, so you can see the way some of the setups go, or what some of the bands look like when they're playing, or the crowds, whatever. We can go through some of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I consider live like combat setup where you're out in the battlefield pretty much.
Yeah. And the good thing is most of the places that we go to, like, we've been there before and they know us, and they know we're no problem, and so we don't have to deal with a lot of stuff that you might have to deal with if you just show up at a place to do sound and it's oh, you guys, you're in the way, this and that. Like, you get to some places a couple times where it's like it's a restaurant, right? And they have bands, but they're a restaurant. They don't really want bands because bands are taking, customers away from, that's tables they want to sit people at to make money, right? So, I get it that there's some places where they're having bands, but the staff doesn't really want the band to be there. So sometimes they just kind of rush you. And
the band sells the drinks in a good bar.
when they do, that's great. That's true. There were a couple that I talked to the bar owners when they had like open mics, for example. Like they had, oh yeah, they used to do an open mic over here for years, because sometimes open mics are great where people come in, they'll buy dinner, they buy drinks and everything else. They had these open mics where people would come in and they wouldn't even get water. Like they would just come in and just sit there, wait their turn, play, and then go home. So it was, I get where that could be a problem. They cancel it because it's not working out for that reason. But if everyone is in the spirit of the thing and doing, helping the business do business and helping the people have fun, everybody working together, that works out well.
Yeah, it's part of the reason why you're there. Like, bars can still be the best facilitator for local musicians if the local musicians understand what they're bringing to that bar. Bring your friends.
Yeah, there you go. Bring the crowd if you can. I mean, you shouldn't have to bring the whole crowd every time. Like any bar you're going to play at, that they technically should have their own crowd built in on that night anyway, right? Yeah. But if you bring your own crowd, or if they have a particularly good night, then you're going to stand out in the owner's mind for the next time they need to fill a night, and they'll contact you guys.
Yeah, and that actually benefits both the bar and the musicians. It helps to create a creative community.
Some places even throw in food and drinks. You never know.
Hey, you throw in a sandwich and I'm there.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was some awesome miking tips on acoustic. In the future, if I have a situation to do that, I'm going to be taking his tips in consideration.
Now, you do remember when I had the
Pro.recording.
I'm sorry, get.pro.recordings. You remember that I had the Zoom H6 recorder back then when I was doing all the recordings from the live stuff. They have the mics in that configuration where they're crossed like that, and you can dial them from 90 to 180. So you can change the field just right on it just by dialing it on the actual mics. But the stereo sound that you get from that, because of the way it's aimed and because of where you set it in the room, is amazing.
Or where on the neck. It's not necessarily on the guitar hole.
Yep.
It's just off to the side.
And if you think about it, if you were right over the sound hole, a lot of times that's where people are. That's where their hand is when they're trying to play, and we're trying to get the tone, the sound of the actual guitar, and that's where you're getting right off of that, where the body meets the the neck.
Well, and some mics, their sweet spot is to the side. It's not like there's only certain mics that are designed for precision, like capture right in front. A lot of the mics we're talking about here, their sweet spot is to the side a little bit.
Yep. And that one they were talking about, the side, is straight rejection though. So they were just trying to look at the side here and get the, get the recording from the left side bounce and the right side bounce and just completely reject the straight signal.
Yeah. I reject you.
None for you.
So we will be visiting Get Pro Recordings again, because definitely got a mixer night coming, and there's some great stuff in here on the mixing side.
All right.
I liked his tips there, what he was doing post.
Oh yeah.
Deal with the signal.
Exactly. And even just, the gain and the more gain. I mean, there's plenty of times where we've all dealt with signal that was too low somewhere. And, you try to push the gain as much as you can, but you're running into problems where that's kind of a serial gain situation where you can make that happen.
It's a catch-22. If you up your gain on something that's got a weaker signal, yes, you do bring the gain up, but sometimes you actually have equipment that starts to sound like shit when you push it that hard. You got to kind of find that sweet spot where you're getting the capture that you want, and if you have to boost it afterwards, that's okay. It's easier to boost a little bit where you need to than to try to get rid of clipping and bullshit that you really don't want to have to push too hard on.
And you don't want to have to fight against the stuff coming up from the noise floor either. I mean, you don't want to have to, he was talking about the de-esser for string noise, which we talked about a little bit. And that's one of those things that, whether it's that or whether there's other kinds of, unwanted noise coming in, you're going to boost all of that as you're pushing up that gain. So you got to watch that too.
That's the pain in the ass when it comes to mics, because when you do have to give them more gain, everything comes with it. And it's like, I like the tone I'm getting from this mic, but I don't want the whole room in there.
Yeah. I mean, musicians breathe. They have a bad habit of breathing while they play too. And I mean, that gets in the recordings too. You know, some people breathe very loudly.
Damn it, you musicians, stop breathing.
Can't you hold your breath for 4 minutes? Come on.
You got to train yourself to be able to do that.
And focus on your playing while you're about to pass out.
Yeah. So to finish things off tonight, you know, we have mentioned Anastasia so often in some of our other topics, and I was like, you know, we've never actually brought up the channel and shown it. The one video that caught me in the last couple of months was this idea of a ternary computer.
Right.
Not binary. There's 3 bits to this logic, and it's something I've thought for years, like, why do we work in binary? And there is reasons for it. But it's interesting to see the history that she goes into here on this idea has been around for a long time, and it's now being reevaluated.
Yeah. And the way we talked about before, you know, certain problems are better dealt with a quantum computer. Certain problems are better dealt with a classical computer. You'll have the same kind of situation where there will be certain problems that are probably better set for a ternary computer. But I don't think it's going to necessarily be the everyday replacement for every machine that's out there.
Well, it's kind of like what we saw with like these different AI models a couple weeks ago, and well, this is a cool different way. It's not a large language model, but is it going to work for everything, or is it a specialty thing? And quantum computers was the reason I went to her channel in the first place, because
exactly,
she really dives into like the cutting edge of computer processing. At Anastasia in tech. If you're into tech and you haven't already followed this channel, you're missing out.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of good videos.
Yeah, just looking at the ones that are here is like, we've covered some of these.
Exactly.
But with this one, a ternary computer, the idea that it's not just on or off. There's a middle layer that allows for more combinations. With binary, you technically only have 4 combinations. With this, you open up the ability to give more instructions at the same time.
Binary gives you yes and no ternary. Is that yes, no, and both, or yes, no, and maybe? Yes, no, and you know, other.
It's the maybe part of it that fascinates me. And you know, now with AI logic and everything going on, it's possible that on the AI side, the logic there might appreciate having a maybe in its decision making.
Yep. Too soon to tell. It's like the magic 8 ball. Too soon to tell. Ask me later.
Processing.
There you go. Recalculating.
All right, let's see what she's going to take us down a little history tour, and then, you know, look at where this concept could be going.
Nice.
There is a blind spot at the heart of modern computing. For the last 70 years, every computer chip on Earth has been built on the same foundation: binary. Just zeros and ones. And no one ever questioned it. But what if that was just a historical accident? What if computers wouldn't stop at 2 states? What if they had a third? That's the idea behind ternary computing. And this simple idea could unlock levels of efficiency binary could never touch. And it's not just a theory. Decades ago, the Soviets actually built one. And today, this story taking a very unexpected turn. Subscribe if you're curious, and let's get into it. Imagine the Soviet Union in the 50s. They had a strong start. They built one of Europe's very first digital computers. Soon after, they released the best one, a machine that outpaced America's best computer, UNIVAC 1. But this triumph didn't last. And here is the real reason. At the time, in the US, IBM was cranking out computers by the thousands. Meanwhile, in the USSR, every machine was almost handmade, built with scarce parts and no scale of production. At this time, at Moscow State University, engineer Nikolai Brusentsov and his small team were cornered. Binary mainframes were too costly, sealed inside government labs. Academia couldn't get near them. That's when Brusentsov chose to fight back, to build a new kind of computer, simple enough to build it with the scraps he had, cheap enough that students could finally put their hands on it. Brusentsov searched for answers, spending months on finding a new way forward. And that's when he met Sergei Sobolev, a brilliant mathematician who introduced him to ternary mathematics, a system built not on 2 states, but 3. This moment was like discovering a color TV in a black and white world. Suddenly, there was a whole new dimension. And together, they began exploring how this elegant idea could be turned into a working computer. What's interesting, Brusentsov argued that binary was just a historical accident. Relays and vacuum tubes had only 2 states. That's how 0 and 1 logic became the default. And since then, nobody questioned it. But Brusentsov and his team did. They started to work on Ceton, the world's first computer to run on 3 logic states. -1 for no, 1 for yes, and 0 sort of for both. We will dive into the details of how exactly it works later in the video, but for now imagine that each bit, so-called trait, can represent now 3 states instead of 2. That means more data can be processed in each computing step, and math can be done with fewer moves. Even negative numbers in this case don't need an additional sign bit, so subtraction and addition became naturally easier. And soon Brusentsov realized that this elegant math could turn into circuits that were simpler, more efficient, and far cheaper to build. After 2 years of non-stop work, in 1958 they finally unveiled Ceton, the world's first ternary computer. Production began the following year at the Kazan Mathematical Machines factory and lasted for several years. The hardware was primitive by today's standards, just 2,000 magnetic elements and 100 germanium transistors. But here is the thing. Ceton came live on a very few components, and it was at least 10 times cheaper than the binary machines of the day. Based on this paper, the Ceton used about 30% fewer parts than a binary machine. It was radical, but it worked. In 1959, the Soviets had something the West didn't: a working ternary computer. About 50 units were built and sent to research institutions. But then reality hit. The fab had no interest in scaling up the production, and the Ceton was just discontinued. And that's really sad. It didn't fail because it didn't work, but because the Soviet Union lacked both the ecosystem and the political will to push it forward. And it also failed because the world had already chosen binary. Memory, transistors, software, the entire stack was locked into 2 states. So Ceton never really stood a chance, and it just faded into history. Fast forward to today, and now AI is burning through energy like there is no tomorrow. Data centers are pushing power grids to its limits. And once again, computing is hitting a wall. The same wall Brusensov saw in the 1950s. Binary might not be enough. And this time, with advanced chip manufacturing and new semiconductor materials, three-state logic might finally have its moment. And Huawei just proven that this might be possible. Let me show you. Every computer chip today is built of tiny devices called transistors. And these devices switch between two states. A classical transistor does it by switching at a certain threshold level. You can think of threshold level as of person's patience level. Imagine you annoy someone just a little bit, so nothing happens. But if you cross this level, boom, and you get a reaction. That's exactly how a transistor works. That's the foundation of binary logic behind all modern chips. Now imagine, a regular transistor has just one threshold level, just like a regular person. But if we want to build a ternary computer, we need to add something extra. We need a device that can clearly tell apart three different states. How do you do that? By giving a transistor two threshold levels instead of one. And that's the magic to unlock three states. And from there, you can start building the entire computer in ternary logic. And this means you have to rebuild all logic circuits, including memory, so it can switch between three states instead of two. And wow, that's quite some work. And here it's getting exciting. Huawei just released their new ternary chip at 7 nanometers. And we will have a look into how it works exactly in details in a moment. But before that, have you ever wondered how much of your personal information is out there online? Your name, home address, phone number, even information about your family members could be floating around online. This happens because data brokers collect and sell your personal information without you even realizing it. And this exposes you to risks of data breaches and personal security. That's where Incogni, the sponsor of today's episode, comes in. Incogni helps you to regain control by removing your personal information from the databases that brokers rely on. I use it myself, and you will be surprised how simple it is. You sign up, authorize Incogni to act on your behalf, and they send data protection law-compliant requests to these companies, forcing them to remove your information from their databases. And just now, Incogni introduced a new custom removals feature. It allows you to submit links to websites that expose your data, and Incogni's experts will remove it beyond their automatic system. And then you can track every step of the progress right from your dashboard. I highly recommend you to try out Incogni. It's a simple way to reduce unwanted spam and keep your data off the grid. Use my code INTECH at the link below to get 60% off their annual plan. For decades, ternary logic was trapped in the lab. Clever, but impossible to scale. Over years, old patents from Soviet pioneers and even IBM have long expired. And just recently, Huawei released a new patent, brand new patent for a ternary chip. The trick here is special devices, special transistors that have not one but two threshold levels, and this allows chip to distinguish clearly between three different states. And from there, they rebuilt all the building blocks, including logic gates and memory. A ternary memory cell can now hold three values instead of two, packing more data into fewer space. Let's make it real with one simple example. AND gate. And this actually takes us back to the Cyton computer, which also featured these kind of gates. Here we picked this particular AND gate because it's very simple, basic, but at the same time essential part of every computer chip. Without AND gates, computer can't make decisions. Its job is simple. Only if all inputs are true, then it gives me true. So you can trust it. In binary logic, with zeros and ones, it's very simple, and it's basically just 4 possible combinations. In ternary chip, things get spicy. Each input can be -1, 0, or +1. This gives us 27 possible combinations. In this new setup, AND gate returns you the lowest value. If at the input you have +1 and +1, you get +1. If you have +1 and 0, you get 0. Anything with -1, you get -1. As you can see with this simple example, now each bit carries more information compared to binary, meaning high information density. This means you can do more with the same amount of input wires, and this results in more compact chip circuits and more efficient designs. Huawei's new patent showed that their new chip used 40% fewer devices, 60% less power, and ran 20% faster. But here is the thing about patents. Patents are tricky. Now, for example, in my startup, we are deciding what to patent and what not to patent, because whatever you patent is publicly available. That's why the biggest breakthroughs often never get patented. And this means there can be a lot more going behind the scenes which we haven't seen yet. And that's exciting. Subscribe to the channel right now to stay up to date with the most exciting updates in technology. In fact, the biggest promise of 3-state logic is efficiency at scale. And right now, training massive neural networks is a multi-million-dollar power bill. Ternary chips could slash the energy bill and speed things up. In a data center, that could mean cutting power use by a third, while boosting throughput. That sounds almost too good to be true. And that's where the story takes a turn. Ternary chips are still digital. But because they use 3 states, they sit halfway to analog. So we have digital chips which are binary, just 2 states, we have analog chips which have infinite states, and in between sit ternary chips. This could be a perfect trade-off, but there is a catch. Noise. A ternary device has to distinguish between 3 different states, not just 2. And even the tiniest noise or manufacturing flaw can blur them, causing errors. Building reliable 3-state logic at scale is brutally hard. And don't forget, today's entire semiconductor ecosystem is built for binary. Software, memory, compilers, everything. That was a challenge in the 1950s, and it hasn't gone away. The solution here could be graphene. And carbon nanotube transistors, one of the most powerful tricks nature gives us for electronics. These are tiny, rolled-up sheets of graphene, just a few nanometers wide. And these are a perfect match for ternary logic, because their size naturally decides how they switch. And by changing the diameter of a nanotube, you can clearly set 3 logic levels. That makes them perfect for ternary logic. In fact, advantages of graphene go way beyond that. Graphene itself can move electricity incredibly fast, even at very low power. And for any kind of chip, that means cooler processors, longer battery life, and big energy savings in data centers. That's why TSMC and IMEC are betting on it as one of the strongest paths for the post-silicon era. And it's not just talk. One of the recent IEEE papers showed a ternary chip built with carbon nanotubes transistors at 32 nanometers. The result? 45% less area, 30% less energy for the same AI operations binary chips do today. And that's not an incremental step. That's a big leap. So, will ternary replace binary? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Probably it will find a way alongside binary for the applications where we need it the most. Because history shows us that the biggest revolution in computing and beyond coming not from having more of the same, but from daring to try something entirely different. And the same goes to you. The next big leap in your life or your career may come from one thing everyone else is too afraid to try. Connect with me on LinkedIn and check out my newsletter. We send it out weekly. All the links you will find in the description box below. A lot of good stuff. Now check out this deep dive in the future of US chip manufacturing, or this one, deep dive into the robotics, the insane technology behind the first human clone. And I will see you there. Ciao.
Oh, ciao.
Ciao. Always great information.
I chow down on her information, man.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Such good stuff. I mean, we talked about the chip design process before in several of her videos. I mean, I've watched many of her videos as far as whether it's the chip design, whether it's the industry, all that stuff. What I'm interested in with the ternary stuff is that is much higher information density. When you're looking at just that AND gate was a great example of, the 4 states, or all of a sudden you get all these other states where now everything becomes much more complicated, yes, but it also becomes much more information dense.
And I love how she shows it visually and her analogies to understand complex things here in a layman's term. Her analogies make it easy to understand what the computer's trying to do. The visuals help me to understand, wow, that's how they're building them. And at such a precise, tiny level, it is all about efficiency and getting that CPU and all the other stuff to be as efficient as possible.
And again, noise does introduce problems, and introduces more problems, it seems, when you get to that double state issue, because now a little bit of noise can push you over the first state or over the second state by accident when you're trying to stay in the lower state. And that's where you start getting inaccuracies when you start pushing down to the smaller and smaller dimensions. The smaller they try to make the chips,
it
they
gets
end up
harder
having
and
more
harder
difficulty.
to make them.
Right, exactly. And there can be problems with the voltage and all that. There's all kinds of problems that you get when you start making it smaller and smaller. So they run into issues and have to completely redesign at that point. But they come up with new ways to do it, where first it's this way, then it's that way, then they do the gate all around, and they have all the different
trial and
processes
error.
right.
Trial and error.
And better ways. They find better ways to do things, and as they do, this may be one of those, again, better ways to do certain things. It might not replace everything, but maybe it will be something to add alongside what we're currently doing.
I think her assessment that it's going to be a complementary approach depending on what you're trying to do, and there are going to be some situations where this kind of processing approach may work better than the current binary approach has done. We've seen this before. The RISC processor was all about reducing instructions, and great idea, but because you have to change the architecture, how did the RISC catch on in the operating system world, in the programming world? You saw some of the same problems here, where this is an interesting idea and it does do things more efficient, but you got to get the right things on board in order to be able to develop this technology beyond just proving you can do it.
Right. And again, having to physically redesign memory, is a big step also.
It's why you don't see the industry, but okay, this is better, and industries don't move like that. Look at how long it takes for computer standards. How long did it take for us to go from USB 1 to 2 to 3 and all these other plugs that we now have? The industry never changes overnight. Not with this stuff.
No. And some of it comes from requests for comments or requests for, the RFCs. I mean, that's where they get some of the information to try to start moving these things forward and try to find industry standards, because they try to find out from the people who do the stuff what is going to be a standard going forward. But it does require that kind of input from the industry.
And the industry, part of their motivation is money, and the other half is scientifical. There's some people who are working on this who are all about the science side of it, and can this be done, and what can we do if we can do it this way. The other half is like, well, if we can do it, how much can we charge, and how much money are we going to make off of it? And both sides of that industry fuel this kind of innovation.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm loving innovation in all kinds of technology. Some of the ones I was watching recently run things about, new fusion reactor designs that they're coming up with. So there's all kinds of different things that are important to keep up with. And, keeping up on the technology stuff for the computer side of things, I always love checking out the stuff that Anastasia has.
Anagram Productions. He just mentioned, we don't realize how fucked we are with AI. Believe me, we are going down that journey.
Oh yeah, AI is crazy.
I wouldn't say we're fucked. I'd say the glass is both half full and half empty, depending on which way you look at AI.
Again, I see all tools as neutral. They can be made evil or good depending on the intent and execution of the person using them.
Yeah, it's not the gun. It's the one holding it that I'm worried about.
Yep. And sometimes you got to worry about the one whacking the machete on the bar instead. I mean, pay attention.
Yeah, if his programming or prompting sucks, then
there could be issues.
Yeah, friends don't let friends prompt the wrong way.
No. It sends you down the wrong rabbit hole, right?
Yeah. Well, this was the right rabbit hole for technology when it comes to Anastasia. She's cutting edge technology.
Oh yeah, for sure. Always appreciate it.
And I do love her analogies and visual representation help me to understand something that, I mean, I've gone down this rabbit hole, but wrapping your brain around like the size of CPUs these days, they fit them on an atom.
It's crazy.
We've come a long way.
There you go.
So that was a nice mix of technology, a little sad news. Or I don't know if I'm sad yet with Native Instruments. That's got to play itself out. The Adobe Animate, I felt like this is the end of an era, and we're in the 21st century now.
Exactly. And again, I can see many reasons why a company would step away from stuff going the way AI is going right now. I wouldn't want to be in a company that's pushing all in on animation because of how easy it's gotten to do stuff very with a prompt.
The big problem with the big companies versus the small ones, like we saw with the cabinet makers, Adobe's got its feet in so many ponds that when a company that big has to make decisions on, okay, we got 20 billion less than we had last year, their decisions there sometimes can cut whole product lines.
Exactly. And, they have to do what they have to do. That's, part of corporate survival as well.
Yeah. Just like with these types of computers, they have to be able to make a profit off of it. Otherwise, they got to get a lot of funding and grants, and that takes work too.
How about those circuit boards from the Soviet days? I mean,
yeah.
Would you buy something like that?
You see that copper coiling? Somebody did their work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is the handcrafted chips back then.
Yeah. In Soviet Union, motherboard makes you.
Exactly. But again, all made handcrafted with love, kind of like the amplifiers, like we saw earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, and with old school like that, you kind of have to do it by hand. It's too expensive to develop a machine to be able to manufacture it.
Yeah. Well, when they talked about, not wanting to scale it up, it's like, yeah, no, I mean, they saw how much work it took to make those in the first place, and like, oh, scale that up to do 1,000 times that many next year. They're like, no.
Scaling was the big obstacle back then that now has changed in a dramatic way. So something like this that would have needed to scale back then and just been impossible. We now live in a time where scaling, that's part of the job. Like we bought this equipment so we could scale. We
knew the problem beforehand. We knew we were going to need to scale. Yeah.
And that's thinking ahead. When you do your homework on what you're buying or buying into, then you're prepared to grow.
Exactly. And growing is what we do here on Thursdays.
Oh, yes. One day I will catch up to Glenn.
That's right. 6'6". Keep going.
I need like at least a foot to be competitive.
There you go. I went to a friend's house the other day, and their ceiling, like in here, I have 9-foot ceiling, so I'm just used to it. Just walking around is very, very freeing having a 9-foot or cathedral ceiling. I walked into a friend's house. I swear their ceiling was probably 7'2", and I'm 6'6", and it's just like. It's like
a hobbit house.
The ceiling is like 6 inches off my skull. I mean, I can't even like get this much of my hand like between my head and the skull. It's like, or my head and the ceiling. It's like, yeah, that's a low bridge.
It's a hobbit house.
The doorways weren't as low as a hobbit house, but we did have one gig out in Pennsylvania that we used to do where it was such an old building that they had like the back room where we were performing had a doorway that was literally here, like the top of the doorway. Like I would not hit my head on the door. I would hit like my nose on the door.
Better
if I
be
just
paying attention.
Yeah, so I had to like duck completely under to get out of that room, and then go out and get a beer, and then come back and duck all the way under to come back in. So I made sure to get two, so I don't have to go back and forth as much.
Oh yeah, if I'm going to get beers while I go through that door, by the third or fourth one, I might forget.
And you don't want to forget, because again, with that, if I was wearing a hat, it would be a problem because you wouldn't see it. You're looking down, hat on. But without that, I mean, you can't miss it because there's wall right there. Only ceiling lower than that was at my grandma's house. The basement had a 6-foot ceiling, and I mean a 6-foot ceiling where the ceiling is at this level, and it's like, yeah, no.
Knowing you would walk through the door and it would now have a little circle at the top.
Exactly. I have hit a couple things that hard. A friend of ours did that one time down a flight of stairs at some bar that we were doing a gig up in Vermont. Comes down the stairs, and I mean the building like rang like a bell, like the tone. And it was like, no. He's like, oh my God. Sit him down, relax, make sure he's not bleeding. Oh my God.
You need an aspirin.
He had a splitting headache for sure. You don't ring a building like that and not feel it.
No, if you're gonna ring it, record it, because there's probably a cool sound in there.
It was probably cool. You probably didn't think so until several days later, though. Yeah, for sure.
And speaking of recording night, it's coming.
Nice.
I've been digging in a couple directions there. That video tonight with the acoustic guitar was part of the whole recording everything.
Nice. Recording from DIs, recording from acoustics in the room, recording signals from modelers.
Recording drums, acoustic instruments, singers.
Strings, horns, all of it. But we'll check it all out. Probably more the next time, though.
Boo, they blitzed.
You went over there?
I was just about to say bye, damn it, Restream.
There you are. Get over there. That's better. But we'll see you guys all next time on Thursday.
Yes.
Right?
Till next we speak. Next week.
Talking shh. IT. Night, everybody.
Night.
We cover digital audio workstations and music tools. We explore theory, gear in 82. How to arrange, compose, and the art of arranging. Taking a look at AI and how the times have changed. On a PC or a Mac, and even with a mobile device, we'll be talking about it all every Thursday night from software to plugins and sys that entice. Dive deep into tech and let creativity take flight. Talkin IT. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. From bedroom producers to seasoned pros, we're breaking it down so knowledge grows. Whether you're a DJ or a beat making wizard, we got the tips and tricks to make your sound sizzle. Mixing and mastering, that's our jam. With the tutorials and tips on how much rap. Get the best quality from your setup and gear. Tune in every week and lend us your ear. We're talking IT. Come and join in and have some fun. It's highly educational with a lot to learn. We're talking